Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions: the mystery of the Lonnie Zamora Incident, the UFO landing that convinced even the US Air Force. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction. Not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. On April 24, 1964, at approximately 5:45 p.m., Lonnie Zamora, a Socorro, New Mexico police officer with 7 years of experience and a solid reputation, was pursuing a speeding vehicle on the outskirts of town when he heard a roar and saw a flash of light in the sky. Thinking an explosion might have occurred at a nearby dynamite shack, he broke off the pursuit and drove toward the sound. What he found instead, in a gully approximately 450 meters from a populated road, was an egg-shaped metallic object on the desert floor, with 4 landing legs visible and 2 figures in white coveralls standing near it. The figures appeared to startle when they noticed Zamora approaching and moved rapidly toward the object. As Zamora drew closer, the object emitted a loud roar. Flame appeared beneath it, and it rose rapidly into the air, accelerating to the northwest and disappearing from sight. On the ground where it had stood were 4 distinct impressions from the landing legs and a scorched area of desert vegetation. Zamora's case is notable because it survived scrutiny at every level. Project Blue Book investigated it. J. Allen Hynek, the Air Force's own scientific consultant, called it one of the most puzzling and significant cases he had encountered in 17 years of Blue Book work. CIA Director Alan Dulles, the case briefly attracted interest at the highest levels of the intelligence community, was briefed on it. The FBI was notified, and at the end of all this investigation by professional skeptics with the full resources of the United States government, the Socorro case was classified as unknown. What makes Zamora particularly significant is the physical evidence. 4 distinct landing pad impressions were found in the desert floor, each of precise dimensions and depth. Burned plant material was found in a pattern consistent with the described flame exhaust. A senior scientist from NASA examined the physical trace evidence and found it consistent with the landing of a heavy object. Zamora's account was consistent across dozens of interviews over the following decades, and his credibility was never successfully challenged. The Socorro landing remains the best evidenced UFO landing case in United States history, and it is still classified as unknown. This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we go further, if you are finding this investigation compelling, please take a moment right now to like this video, drop a comment below with your thoughts, and share it with someone who loves a good historical mystery. If you are watching on YouTube, hit subscribe and tap the bell icon so you never miss a new episode. If you found us through Facebook, tap follow on our page. It takes just a few seconds, and it genuinely helps us keep making these documentaries. Now, let us get back to the investigation. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the landscape of modern documented mysteries, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. Governments keep secrets. This is not a conspiracy theory. It is documented fact, confirmed by declassified archives, freedom of information disclosures, and the confessions of officials long after the events in question. The United States government ran secret programs to test psychedelic drugs on unwitting civilians, MKUltra, to spy on its own citizens, COINTELPRO, and to cover up nuclear testing incidents that killed American soldiers. The British government suppressed information about UFO encounters by military personnel for decades. The Soviet Union systematically falsified scientific data to maintain ideological conformity. None of this means that every government secret involves supernatural phenomena or alien contact. The reality of classified programs is almost always more mundane. Military technology being tested covertly, intelligence operations that cannot be publicly acknowledged, or simply the bureaucratic instinct to classify first and justify later. Most UFO sightings that turn out to have official explanations were classified aircraft. Most government denials of anomalous phenomena are straightforwardly honest. The phenomena being denied are simply not real. But the documented history of government secrecy has a practical effect on investigative credibility. When officials deny knowledge of events that witnesses describe in compelling detail, that denial cannot be taken at face value without independent corroboration. The proven track record of institutional concealment means that institutional denial, however authoritative it sounds, is not the same as evidence of absence. This complicates every modern mystery that touches on official narrative. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter. The core evidence surrounding the Lonnie Zamora incident, the UFO landing that convinced even the US Air Force, is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. Lonnie Zamora, 1933-2009, served as a patrolman and later sergeant with the Socorro Police Department until his retirement. His reputation within the department and the community was as a reliable, sober, and honest officer, not inclined to flights of imagination. His supervisor, Sheriff Wilfred Montoya, immediately believed Zamora's account and backed it publicly. Zamora described the two figures near the craft as roughly child-sized, wearing white coveralls and exhibiting what appeared to be startled reactions when they became aware of his approach, behaviors consistent with autonomous, purposeful individuals rather than with radio-controlled dummies or mannequins. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered the physical evidence at the landing site was documented by multiple investigators within hours of the sighting. 4 rectangular impressions in the desert hardpan, each measuring approximately 12 inches by 5 inches, and pressed approximately 2 inches into the hard-packed soil, formed a pattern consistent with the landing legs of an object approximately 4 meters in diameter. The impressions required an object of several hundred kilograms to produce them in the hardpan soil's compaction level. Scorched brush and a small patch of burned vegetation were found within the landing area. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine. The official investigation was extensive by any standard. Project Blue Book's officer, Major Quintanilla, flew to Socorro within 48 hours and conducted a field investigation. J. Allen Hynek traveled to Socorro on Quintanilla's invitation and spent several days examining the evidence and interviewing Zamora. NASA scientist Dr. J. Allen Holt examined the physical trace evidence. FBI Special Agent Arthur Byans filed a report. Multiple civilian UFO investigators, including Ray Stanford, conducted extensive investigations of the landing site. The consensus of all investigators was that the physical evidence was genuine and that Zamora was a credible witness. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation, but the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, the object's configuration, as described by Zamora, included a red insignia or marking on its white or metallic surface, an oval shape with 3 lines I. Inside it, the insignia was subsequently confirmed by at least 2 other witnesses who reported seeing the same object in the area around the same time, though these corroboration reports are less well documented than Zamora's own. Zamora drew the insignia multiple times and consistently reproduced the same design. Several researchers have proposed the insignia represents a manufacturer's mark or mission identifier, but no conventional aircraft or spacecraft has been identified with that mark. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of J. Allen Hynek's assessment of the Socorro case, written in his 1972 book, The UFO Experience, was explicit. I have investigated dozens of UFO reports in which the evidence pointed to landing of a craft of unknown nature. In none of them was I able to establish to my own satisfaction that a visit by an intelligently controlled craft actually did occur. The case at Socorro, New Mexico, is the closest to such an established fact that I have encountered. This assessment, from the Air Force's own scientific consultant after a full field investigation, constitutes the most significant professional endorsement of any single UFO case. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous point. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding. The Socorro case was the trigger for Hynek's development of the Close Encounter Classification System. The Socorro incident was a close encounter of the third kind CI, a sighting involving humanoid figures associated with a craft, and Hynek's experience of investigating it as the most well-evidenced such case he had encountered prompted him to formalize the classification categories that would later become famous through Steven Spielberg's 1977 film, which was directly inspired by Hynek's work. The film's title, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, is taken directly from Hynek's classification of the Socorro-type case. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations. And in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain the Lonnie Zamora Incident, the UFO landing that convinced even the U.S. Air Force. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that the genuine craft landing theory holds that what Zamora observed was a genuine unconventional craft that actually landed in the Socorro Desert, and that the two figures he observed were its operators or occupants. The physical evidence is consistent with a real, heavy craft landing in the desert. The witness is unimpeachably credible, and 60 years of investigation have produced no conventional explanation. Under this theory, the Socorro landing is one of the clearest documented instances of a landed unconventional craft in a relatively controlled environment with a credible witness at close range. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence. But it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that the classified test vehicle theory proposes that what Zamora observed was an experimental vehicle, possibly a lunar landing module prototype, a classified aerodynamic research vehicle, or a military drone being tested near Socorro, which was adjacent to the White Sands missile range. The Lunar Excursion Module, LEM, was under development in the early 1960s, and some researchers have compared Zamora's description to LEM prototypes. Under this theory, the egg-shaped craft and the white coveralled figures, test pilots or engineers, are consistent with a classified aerospace test. The subsequent investigation by Air Force and government agencies would then represent investigation of an incident involving classified programs, with the unknown classification representing the inability to acknowledge the classified explanation. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that the deliberate hoax theory, proposed by skeptical researchers including Philip Klass, suggests the Socorro incident was a hoax engineered by local citizens to attract tourism to the economically depressed area. Under this theory, Zamora was either in on the hoax or was genuinely deceived by a staged landing with conventional equipment. Critics of this theory note that no evidence of staging has ever been found, that the physical impressions in the hardpan soil would have required heavy machinery to fake, that Zamora's consistent accounts over decades with no financial reward make ongoing deception implausible, and that J. Allen Hynek and other experienced investigators found no indication of hoax after thorough field investigation. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding the Lonnie Zamora Incident, the UFO landing that convinced even the US Air Force, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes the 4 landing pad impressions, documented photographically by multiple investigators within hours of the sighting, are the primary physical evidence. Soil compaction analysis found that producing impressions of the documented depth and dimensions in the local hardpan soil would require a weight of approximately 400-800 kilograms, depending on the area over which it was distributed. No conventional vehicle capable of flight is known to have operated in the Socorro area at that time that would have left such impressions, and no other marks from wheels, treads, or conventional landing gear. This evidence has been subjected to independent verify. Cation skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented Zamora's testimony, given consistently across approximately 47 documented separate interviews over 30 years. He died in 2009, having never changed his account in any significant detail. Constitutes testimonial evidence of unusual consistency and longevity. The fact that Zamora received no financial benefit from his story, he reportedly found the public attention unwelcome and maintained a conservative and factual presentation style rather than seeking to elaborate or sensationalize, the account is consistent with genuine memory of a real event rather than a maintained fabrication. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed additional witness reports from the Socorro area on the same day, reports not widely publicized but documented in the Blue Book files, place a similar object in the sky near Socorro at approximately the same time as Zamora's sighting. These additional reports were filed independently and without knowledge of Zamora's account, and they describe an egg-shaped white object moving rapidly above the desert. The existence of independent corroborating reports significantly reduces the possibility that Zamora's sighting was a unique hallucination or fabrication. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding the Lonnie Zamora incident, the UFO landing that convinced even the US Air Force. Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. The Socorro case files are available in the Project Blue Book archive at the National Archives and have been extensively analyzed by subsequent researchers. The case was included in the 2019 History Channel documentary series Project Blue Book, which dramatized it with significant fictional elements. Academic researchers, including UFO historian Kevin Randall, have published detailed analyses of the case that critique both the original investigation and subsequent interpretations. The Socorro incident's continuing significance lies in its position as the best documented close encounter with physical trace evidence in official U.S. government files. It demonstrates that the 17-year Blue Book program did encounter cases that its own investigators could not explain, and that they documented those cases with sufficient rigor to allow subsequent analysis. The fact that this case, investigated by the full resources of the U.S. government, is still classified as unknown after 60 years is itself a significant piece of evidence about the nature of the UFO phenomenon. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. DLY, satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of the Lonnie Zamora Incident, the UFO landing that convinced even the US Air Force, from the historical record through the physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Lonnie Zamora ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process. And the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please help us reach more people. If you are watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new documentary. If you are watching on Facebook, tap the follow button on our page to stay connected. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.